Probably the number one was just what it did for our business and the amount of focus that it provided us. We are zeroed in on what we want to accomplish and what we're trying to do.
Welcome to the Business of Microsoft Partners podcast, where we empower the Microsoft community through conversations with leaders, practitioners, and consultants of Azure and Microsoft solutions. I'm your host, Scott Easton, and today I'm very pleased to have Rob Horton, the Executive Director of ThreeWill, an Atlanta-based Microsoft partner, join me on the show. For several years, Rob has been focused on delivering world-class digital employee experiences in collaboration, communication, and automation for ThreeWill's clients by cultivating an experienced delivery team, introducing exceptional service offerings, and developing best-in-class processes for delivering value. Rob's dedication to improving the client's employee engagement has led him to a comprehensive understanding of what it takes to improve any organization's overall employee experience. Rob, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks, Scott.
Good. And you're in Atlanta also. You're actually technically in Decatur, right down the street from me. So for everyone listening, Decatur is its own separate People's Republic inside of Atlanta. So our own entity, but we're right in the center of everything in Atlanta. So good to have you near me, Rob. Rob, so as we talked about in the introduction, ThreeWill is a collaboration and communication partner for Microsoft. Could you break it down a little bit more and tell everyone specifically who are ThreeWill's ideal clients? What are some of the ideal projects that you normally help folks with? And we'll get the conversation kicked off from there.
ThreeWill, we're really focused on building up ourselves as thought leaders within the Atlanta market. And our target client is companies that usually have between 50 and 1,000 employees. They're very concerned about their employees' experience. They want to use Microsoft to its fullest, and they want to use Microsoft's tools around collaboration and communication, make sure they're getting the most out of that.
So let me stop you there. When you say Microsoft tools, what are we talking about? Is this like SharePoint, OneDrive, Viva? What are some of the tools that you all really specifically focus on?
Yeah, typically for that size client, they're looking at Teams, and then behind Teams is SharePoint. And so we focus on those technologies. And there's two main service offerings that we work with those clients are a Teams enablement service offering, where we really sit down with that client, understand their business and how best to structure teams in a way and implement teams in a way so that it is an asset to their organization and not just something they use for meetings and chat. The other main service offering that we have for that client is an intelligent intranet based on SharePoint. We've done intelligent intranets for almost decades at ThreeWill, and we've really been able to distill down that experience to the essence of what an organization, around a couple hundred employees, what that organization really needs in order to have authoritative content out there so that their employees can find what they need quickly and easily and have a better experience as an employee.
Sure. Going back to your comments around Teams and not just using Teams for meetings or instant messaging, which I would say probably 95% of organizations, that's pretty much all they use it for. What do you all do to really enhance the value of Teams and not just use it for the day-to-day meetings and instant messaging?
Really, it comes down to, and if we back up a bit, to cut some slack to those organizations that just use it for meetings and chat. We had this pandemic hit and people just said, well, we have to work remotely. We're not used to working remotely. Let's roll out Teams. And that allowed them to have that interaction, and they didn't realize that, they were stopping the bleeding, so to speak. They were like, we've got to do something. And then that's led to employees getting frustrated with Teams because they can't find things. It's not well organized, and it's not an asset for them. It's just kind of a mess because it's been allowed to become a mess. And so what we do to help organizations is we really try and understand what that organization is about. What is their primary use case? What are they in business to do? And then we structure teams in such a way that, for example, for ThreeWill, we have accounts. So we have clients that we work with. So one of the main use cases for teams is for us to collaborate around accounts. So we have an account type for accounts in teams, or group type. And so when I'm talking about one of our clients and somebody else in the organization needs to know, what's going on, they know where to go in teams to find that. So we also don't just we sort of regulate the provisioning of teams so that I can't just go create a team.
I was going to say that's a huge problem in lots of organizations, that it's the Wild West, where, going back to your point, during the pandemic, everyone was remote and there was this just gold rush to get on teams. And it was just wide open and kind of the Wild West. And so, yeah, we see that a lot, where a lot of organizations just have a huge sprawl of people that have created all sorts of Teams channels that are now ghost towns.
Yeah, and that's for sure too. And even when we implemented Teams, we had we didn't have a practical understanding of how channels worked. And that was it's good that you bring that up. So in some situations, we have maybe 10 or 15 channels within a team, and in practice that doesn't work. It may look good from a structure standpoint if I'm trying to figure this out on paper, how we need to structure this. We've learned the lessons that you can't have that many channels and fully expect people to understand where content goes and where they should have conversations. So we actually have developed a process that we use called, and we implement this with our clients, it's a collaboration contract. And we kind of liken it to, at your house, in your kitchen, everybody who lives there more or less knows where the plates go and they know where the silverware goes. And so if somebody comes to unload the dishwasher, you're not going to find glasses all over the place. You're going to find them in the cupboard for glasses. We do something very similar with our clients when we implement Teams, is we create a collaboration contract that says, this is where you go to for this content. This is where you go to for that content, so that everyone agrees and understands. And there's a pact, if you will, to make sure that, when it's time to eat dinner and somebody's setting the table, they know where to go to get the plates.
Right. So do your clients have a lot of teenagers? Because, sticking with your dishwasher analogy, my teenagers never seem to unload the dishwasher correctly. So I can only imagine what goes on in the collaboration space.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to strain this analogy, but yes, for sure. Microsoft's perspective on this too is, hey, the more teams, the better. The more teams that people create, the stickier Microsoft is. And so they're not necessarily looking out for their clients in that way. And that's where it needs a little more help. We need some structure about it.
So, to roll forward on that whole theme of everyone can create as many Teams channels as they want or whatnot, with some of your engagements, how do you handle that scenario where, hey, we implemented Teams during the pandemic, it was wide open, everyone has been creating channels left and right, and now we have a lot of stuff that we no longer need? When ThreeWill is called in for an engagement to really help organize Teams and get it into your collaboration control process, how do you go through and identify, or what's the methodology for identifying stuff that's no longer used and really cleaning up the kitchen, so to speak? We're going to beat up the kitchen thing for the rest of the show. I'm going to just warn you now.
It's fine. I've done it before. So for sure, our process really is to go use case by use case. So we will work with leadership or our sponsor within that organization, say, what's the number one use case for your company? And we tackle that first, whether it's usually the most important thing. And then to follow up, that's what we would do during our implementation project. And we follow up all of our service offerings with another managed service called community management, because we know that The day we sit down with you and we determine what that number one use case is, and we implement those changes for your organization, we know that 3 months, 6 months, 9 months from now, requirements are going to change, needs are going to change, your business may change, and you need to stay on top of that and continuously making changes and enhancements to how your teams are structured and how it's used. So we start with that one main use case, we identify multiple ones, and we follow up through our managed service. We'll tackle the next use case and the next use case and the next use case over time. And we work with the client to prioritize those and say, this is what we're going to do first, and then second, third, and continue.
Right. So when you talk about use cases, and I'd be very interested to hear this from a business perspective, when clients define use cases, what are those typically tied to? Is that a business outcome, like say a revenue generating activity like you talked about at ThreeWill, where it's based on accounts inside of teams, or is it what are the typical metrics or use cases that you see from your client base as far as these primary use cases?
Most of our clients, the primary one is revenue based. So what are they selling widgets? Let's organize teams around those widgets. Are they selling services? Let's organize their teams around those services. Do they have clients? Do they have suppliers? Do they have vendors? What do they have a lot of? And then we organize around that. And then we also do a good bit of work around departments. So different areas of expertise. And then those use cases can get into, those can get into initiatives on a department level. Like HR could come in and say, well, one of our use cases is that we need a place to organize around candidates to hire. So we would implement structure in teams so that everyone knows that's where I go to see candidates that are in the hiring process or candidates that we've already interviewed. And that wouldn't necessarily be, that may be the primary use case for an HR staffing company. That may be the 10th or 11th prioritized use case for a smaller organization that doesn't hire very many people. And so we don't have a one size fits all. We really go through and prioritize and tackle those use cases one at a time.
What would you say the common challenges are that you have when you come in to work with an organization where you're essentially putting in your collaboration framework? What are the biggest or typical challenges that you see inside of these organizations when you do that?
Really, the number one is that they're not using teams to collaborate on content, or they're not using teams to collaborate on their business. Oftentimes they're using teams to hold a meeting, or they're using teams to chat with one another and send messages. That's predominantly what happens. They may have some structure. They may have maybe their departments created, but they're not really collaborating on content. Oftentimes they'll have file shares, and they'll have content on site, or they'll have content somewhere else, and they're not working on it within teams. They're not truly using teams as a collaboration tool. So that's, by and large, that's probably our number one use case.
Do you get any resistance from, say, employees, not necessarily the stakeholders, since the stakeholders have brought ThreeWill in, but from an employee perspective, do you get a lot of pushback as far as imposing some structure on teams, or what do you get at the grassroots level?
We do. It's we are essentially being hired to come in and move some cheese.
Right.
They've worked to a point where maybe it's not optimal, maybe it's not a great working environment for them, but they know how it works. They're comfortable with it. It's essentially the devil that they know. So there is a good amount of management of change that we do. It really starts with showing them how much more efficient things can be, and showing them the capabilities and what they could do with teams from a collaboration standpoint. But no, it is very challenging. I think one of the most challenging scenarios that we were brought in on is if there's a large file share structure. and we're helping the migration of that. We're having them stop using file shares, moving the content into SharePoint behind the scenes in Teams, and then having folks use that. They lose their file, they lose their file explorer. Um, there's a lot of change there.
Yeah, a lot of cheese being moved. I
Yeah.
can see how people are used to using the file explorer and then they're going to a completely different interface, and the problem of where's my stuff is, that I can see how that could be a huge
We get a lot of, oh, great, this Teams is great, but where's my S drive?
yeah. Yeah. There's no S drive.
Yeah.
No S drive. So in your initial engagement, you get at least a few channels set up, a few departments or business use cases set up here. And then essentially after that first engagement, then it sounds like it switches over to a managed service model where is it fair to say that ThreeWill is then the proctor for that initial use case, and then you're helping set up additional Teams channels and additional infrastructure based on getting that first use case down? Then you're going on to additional ones under the managed service. Is that correct?
That's it, absolutely. And we really strive to understand our client's business, not to make assumptions, not to, and we certainly don't come in with a one size fits all solution, because every organization is different. Um, so that we do really spend time on that. One of the things that we believe makes us unique in this market is that we really want to journey with our clients. We don't want to drop technology off and then run for the door. We want to make sure that they've invested in this technology, they've invested in rolling Teams out or rolling an intranet out, and we want to help them protect that investment. We've had, in the past, we've had clients that have said, I don't want a managed service, I just want the intranet. And then we've been called back in 6 months later, and nothing's been added to it, nothing's been used.
Well, and the whole thing is that now there are organizations that are just living on Teams. Their whole business is based on Teams, and the ability to just optimize it and get the most productivity out of Teams is a huge value proposition. I know, I guess the client that you and I had worked on together, the medical service provider, they're doing, all sorts of amazing stuff inside of Teams with patient information. And it's one of those where Teams is literally a mission critical application where it can't be down even for a minute. So it's extraordinarily important for many organizations. It's not just the standard chat and let's have a video meeting type of thing. So there's some incredible value there. Let's switch over to the intelligent intranet and talk more about that offering, and tell us more about that area of ThreeWill's business.
Intelligent internets really are in our DNA. Teams came along when Teams was rolled out, and we were early adopters with that, and identified that as an opportunity to help with clients. But intelligent internets really go further back than that, and it really comes down to helping organizations, helping them sort out and lay out and publish their authoritative content in a way that it's easy to consume. We have a lot of organizations that come to us and say, I work in HR, and 4 out of the 8 hours of my day is answering the same questions over and over again. Where do I do this? Where do I do that? How do I do this? And how do I do that? And we know that those HR professionals really yearn to contribute more, not just answer the same questions over and over. And so that's what we really help them with, is we make sure that authoritative content is structured and visible in a way that it's actually being consumed. And then we go the step further and we actually measure that. We're not just saying, here's all your content, here's all the information your employees need to thrive. Hope they find it.
Right.
We make sure they find it. We are measuring how much content's viewed and how much content is used. We do sentiment surveying and really get in there to make sure that we've set up that content so that it's consumable and that it is being consumed. And that's the primary goal for intelligent intranets. And it is imperative for, any organization, if they've got any standards or any consistent message that they want to communicate, it's imperative for them to have an intelligent intranet. The days of emailing a company newsletter out once a month, it's just no one reads those.
Oh yeah, I know. I know.
So
when I was an FTE, I was probably the worst one. I had no idea what was going on. So that's why I had to start my own business. So.
Yeah, for sure. And we hear stories of the tricks and manipulations that organizations do to try and get their employees to read newsletters. And that's just, we know we have an opportunity when we hear that. And, they do giveaways and all kinds of things that are really masking the issue in general, which is that, email is an ineffective way to communicate authoritative content.
Right. Now, when we talk intelligent intranet, just so we understand the tech stack here, we're talking like SharePoint Online or SharePoint On-Prem. Is that the primary tool that you're working in?
Yeah, it's solely SharePoint Online.
Okay.
Yep. And we structure that. Most organizations have a hub and spoke model, which means there's a central homepage, and that's where everyone goes to start. And then we break that content down into departments. So we set up a structure so that the maintenance and management can be shared, and so you can have different departments own their content. That we found over time that's the most effective way to get that content to keep it fresh and current and up to date and compelling. And then we usually work with a communications department. Some organizations have it, some don't, but to make sure that content from leadership and from the organization, the management and organization, that content gets out there as well.
What are some of the big roadblocks that you run into when you're deploying intelligent intranet or, say, redoing an existing intranet site?
The biggest struggle that we find typically with our clients is keeping the content fresh and up to date. There's always a push to, okay, I'm going to get my content out there. It's going to be great. And then that energy and that momentum dies. That's very, very common. And so we work with them, and that's why our managed service is so important, is that we're constantly out there and pointing out opportunities to share more content, pointing out opportunities where their content gets stale and what impact that's having, because we're measuring its usage, its viewership, and, in some ways gamifying that and helping them to understand that, hey, the more this stuff gets read, the more you're communicating to your employees, the more engaged they're going to be, the more connected to their work they're going to be, and the better experience they're going to have. And we know, there's tons of studies out there that show that better the engagement, the more productivity, the higher the margins, that everything runs better when you have engagement.
Right. What's the typical length of an intelligent intranet engagement? What would you say your typical engagement run is if a 500 person firm comes to ThreeWill and says, hey, we really need to improve our internal communications and collab, and we have an intranet site that no one is using. What does the typical timeline look from engaging ThreeWill to rolling out this improved product?
We have a proven process for how we implement our intelligent intranets. And from kickoff to completion, that's a 6-week implementation schedule. And we have that, we know we can explain to you every step of the way, what's going to happen over those 6 weeks. But it is, we're a well-oiled machine when it comes to rolling out our intranets. Right. We have an implementation team that is exceptional, and we get positive feedback on their work on just about every implementation that we do.
Awesome. Well, Rob, I want to transition, and I want to go back way, well, not too way back, but before you were at ThreeWill, I want to take you back to the time where you were not in IT, actually. You were, you had started out at HP working there and doing some great things there. Then you took a break from HP, and you actually went a completely different direction, and you were really in the home improvement and home decoration business. Tell us a little bit about that and why leave HP, and then all of a sudden what the heck happened to get you out of IT and then say, I want to go completely into home decor?
Yeah, that's great. No, that's great. I was at Hewlett Packard until 2004, and folks that are our age may remember the time. I had been with Hewlett Packard for 10 years. It was a wonderful organization. Near the end, it wasn't, and it never felt like a big company until it did, and that didn't appeal to me. And so I decided to try my hand at my own business, and that business sort of evolved into selling home improvement products and home decor on the internet. And there were a lot of twists and turns that got me there, but in the end, I had a workforce of over 20 warehouse employees, and we had a 40,000 square foot warehouse in Northeast Atlanta. We sold products on eBay. We also sold on a branded website called MightyBigDeals.com, and it was a heck of an operation when it was running.
So what happened? There's got to be more to the story here because you're executive director of ThreeWill.
That's right. So I started that business in 2004. Something happened in 2008. I think it was a housing crash.
Oh yeah. That seems to be the defining point of everyone in our generation. That's the great line of demarcation.
Yeah, that was very challenging. Selling home improvement products and home decor. We were selling to a lot of flippers when the market was, on fire in 2006, 2007. And, the bottom came out. 2008, we tried to survive that by shifting our focus into decor and domestications, bed linens and things of that nature. Just couldn't make it work. So in 2010, I had to make the very, very, very personal and challenging decision to close the business. And that was very, very tough for me.
I can imagine, I've been involved in a number of IT consulting firms, and not everyone has been successful. And it's devastating when a business closes where you've put your heart and soul, especially 6+ years into it. And then, to see it close has got to be really tough. What would you say maybe a couple of lessons learned from that business? I hate to say failure, but you know what I mean, is that there's probably a better way to spin it, but it didn't work out. But what did you learn from that whole experience?
Yeah, I think the big thing is you really have to pivot. You really have to be flexible. No matter what business you're in, you think you can control everything, and there's always external constraints. There's always external changes that can happen, and although you may think you control everything, you really don't. Even internally, there's still plenty of things that you can get wrong, and the ability to change, to pivot, to learn from something not going well is imperative. And I think that was probably my biggest lesson. I think I got to the point with that business where I carried a tremendous amount of inventory, and it was too much inventory, and we were selling to individuals. And a big lesson for me would have been to probably start repackaging that content, repackaging those items and selling it in bulk, to try and move more inventory more quickly. That'd be one thing I probably would do differently. I think in general, having inventory in a business is a layer of complexity I didn't fully understand when I got into it. And I understand a lot more about that now. So, but yeah, that was tough. I think the other really big lesson is when it's over, it's over. Like, I could have probably closed that business sooner than I did. But entrepreneurs, they want to hang on.
It's hard to give something up because, you look at the mythology, and especially American business, that, there are all sorts of very prominent examples of people that held on, that took crazy risk when it looked like things were over, and it's not over, to um, just see how people survived. And what was it? What's the famous story? And I don't know if this is actually real or if this is an urban myth, but FedEx, where I think Fred Smith was having trouble making payroll, so he took whatever money he had left and went to Vegas and won enough money to make payroll. Now I've heard that story, and I don't know if it's true or not, but again, for every Fred Smith that went on to become a cajillionaire, there are probably Joe Smiths who went broke and are in receivership.
Right. There's a DeLorean behind every.
Yes, yeah, exactly. There,
Yeah.
DeLorean, jail time,
Yes.
cocaine. So
Yeah.
a lot of twists and turns. So yeah, it's hard sometimes. And I've actually been in that situation before, where a prior firm that I was involved with, I knew probably a year or two before that it wasn't going to make it, and I was just holding on, hope after hope, that it would turn around, and it then it exploded. No cocaine or DeLoreans, but it did not make it. So
It's always good when it can end without that.
yeah.
And that goes back to being able to pivot. You have to see that this isn't working and change. And the other thing that, and maybe this isn't popular, I will say, is you've got to have some breaks. You have to have some things go your way that you didn't plan. That you just, things have to work sometimes. And as business owners and entrepreneurs, we want to give ourselves credit when we get lucky. Um, you can say that you were in a position to take advantage of that opportunity, and I think that is true. There's merit to that, but there are times when you just get lucky and things come into your lap, or you get unlucky and things don't break your way.
I would definitely agree with that. Is that luck is an underrated factor in the success of business, and it's very easy, especially in our data-driven world today, to say that it was. I read the analytics and I looked at the Power BI report and I made the decision, but the reality is that the ball bounces a certain way.
Yeah, I decided to go to that coffee shop and bump into my largest customer. Right.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It never works out that way. Well, so you took that experience and you came over to ThreeWill. You're the executive director there. You're head of revenue. You run a lot of the operations side. One really interesting thing that you and I have spoken about before is that you implemented, or ThreeWill went and implemented, something called EOS. Would you tell everyone more about what EOS is, and let's get into that a little bit more?
Yeah, I'd love to, and I can evangelize on it all day. It's made a world of difference at ThreeWill. And EOS is the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and it's a system of a way to run your business, and it's like a collection of processes and policies and you know things that you do to make sure that you're focusing on the things that are important and you're gaining what they call traction. Essentially, that you're not just spinning your wheels. And one of the things that I think led us to that at ThreeWill is we kept finding ourselves falling into the same bad habits or bad patterns, and we felt like we were trying to solve the same problems over and over again.
What were some of the bad patterns or bad habits that you were falling into?
Well, not to get too far into it, but I think one thing, and this is probably pretty common with a lot of professional service organizations, is we would push really hard to generate business. We'd be out there really, really, beating the bushes and networking and doing all that, and we would book a bunch of business, and then we would be busy delivering that business, and we'd fall back into, oh my goodness, we need more business, so let's, it wasn't a steady flow. It wasn't a steady process. It was a lot of feast and famine. And that makes, managing, your, um, that makes managing your revenue and your costs and your expenses. It makes it very difficult.
It's got to be a roller coaster for utilization.
Right. And that's the last thing you want in utilization. there's always people who say, well, we booked a ton of business, and that's a quote good problem to have, and at the end of the day, that's still a problem. Um, and I think so. Yeah, EOS has really helped us to focus on those key things that can even everything out, and what's most important. Let's tackle that. Let's solve that problem once and for all, and move on to the next thing.
What does an EOS engagement look like? So you outlined the problem, really feast or famine from a business development perspective at ThreeWill and managing the pipeline and consultant utilization. You have someone come in, and certainly feel free to give a shout out to whoever that person was, but they come in. What does that transformation look like, and how long did that transformation take?
I'll preface all of this with I'm an idea guy. I'm at the broad level, at the big picture, and I actually play the role of visionary for ThreeWill. And so when it comes to details, having our co-founder and our integrator Tommy Ryan on, he can walk through. Okay, step one was this. Step two.
Oh, well, that's perfect.
Yeah, well,
you've got someone to implement the ideas.
That's right. I will preface it with I'm not great on details.
Okay.
I will say
we'll conference Tommy in for the next portion.
We will. We will, and he would be fantastic at it. We decided, you can self-implement EOS, and we decided to hire a consultant to come in and implement with us. And it starts with a 90 minutes, just hey, what's going on in your organization? Let's do a real high level assessment, and look at some of those results and talk about what we can, where we can go from there. And then it's a matter of building out a 10-year target, a 3-year plan, and then even a 1-year plan. And, that really guides everything that you want to try and accomplish. And then you do some long-term, that's your long-term planning. Then you do some short-term planning. They call those rocks. And those are broken down to 3 months or less, quarterly. And then they break it down even smaller into 1 week pulses or 1 week meetings, and we have something called an L10 meeting every week. It's our leadership of our organization. So it starts at, we have this 10-year target, where we want to be in 10 years at ThreeWill, where we want to be in 3 years, where we want to be in 1 year, what we're going to do this quarter to make that 1 year happen, and then what I'm going to do this week to make sure that what I want to accomplish this quarter takes place. And that meeting is what they call an L10 meeting, and they call it an L10 meeting because they want everyone at the end of that meeting to say, if they rated that meeting from 1 to 10, which we actually do every week, we want it to be a 10. So we want it to start on time. We want it to follow the same agenda. We want it to end on time. We want to move through that meeting. And a big part of that meeting, and 2/3 of that meeting, is what they call IDS, which is essentially working on your issues, solving issues. Anybody can put issues on the list. We prioritize those lists, and we say, this is the most important issue for our company this week. We pull that down, we tackle it, we create what are the next steps to move that forward, to solve that issue, and then we move on to the next issue. And by looking, and focusing on that weekly, and then looking at quarterly, the things that we need to accomplish to get to our 1-year goal, we're actually making things happen. We're actually getting to our goals. And we're not saying, gosh, this is a problem. We are selling a bunch of stuff, and then we're delivering, and then we don't have anything to deliver. And then we don't do that anymore, because, we have a plan and we're executing to it.
So take me through, what does a typical week look like operating under EOS? Are you running a meeting every day for this with your various objectives, or what does it look like from a management perspective after implementing EOS?
Yeah, from a management perspective, the leadership team has one L10 meeting for an hour and a half every week. And then out of that L10 meeting, we have to-dos or work items, actions that we need to accomplish within a week. If somebody gets an item and it's like, it's going to take longer than a week, we break it down. What can you get done before this meeting next week? And that's pretty much it from a leadership level. I'll have action items out of a meeting. I'll go and work on those action items throughout the week, and then we'll come back and report back, the next week. Now, we do have some other departments within our organization. We have a sales department, we have a delivery department. They have their own L10s, and so they sort of work on what's important for their departments. On top of that, we do have these rocks, these 3-month goals that we want to achieve, and we're constantly working on those throughout the quarter. So that and the idea is that we complete at least 80% of those rocks or those projects, those 3-month projects. That we complete about 80% of those or more every quarter.
So are the rocks also tied to the weekly L10 meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then you have your weekly stuff to get done, and then your quarterly stuff to get done, based on those L10 meetings.
Yeah, and the accountability is very high in those L10 meetings. We sit in that meeting, and you have to read out, okay, here's my rock. Is it on track or off track? And I can't. Well, I had this meeting. No, is it on track or is it off track?
It's yes or no. It's
yes
binary.
Or no. Yeah, and so our human nature is to equivocate, right? And we say, well, you're telling me, I'm hearing it's off track, so we can drop that down as an issue and we can discuss it and figure out how to get it back on track. But that accountability, I know I'm going to go into that meeting and I have to go through and do the same thing with my action items. If I was assigned an action item on Monday and it's the following Monday and I didn't get it complete, I have to sit in front of the leadership team and read out that action item and say, nope, it's not done. And so that human nature is, I want to say done. I want to say it's on track.
What were some of the biggest challenges then implementing something like this? I can see a lot of change in the organization. Everyone really has to change from the leadership on down. What happened to the culture at ThreeWill?
We went through a lot of changes at the time. I think we were targeting enterprise clients at the time. And enterprise clients are lumpy, if you will. It's big projects, and we needed to solve that problem. And so that's when we decided to really move down market and to target SMBs. So I think that was a very, very big change. Another part of EOS is, having strong core values, as well as everyone evaluating if they understand what they're supposed to do, if they want to do what they're being asked to do, and if they have the capacity to do it. And that's a very challenging conversation to have with yourself and with others. And we do that as a group. And so there were, definitely people at ThreeWill that understood what we were trying to do and had the capacity to do it, but it wasn't for them. It wasn't what they wanted to do. And so they've moved on to other opportunities. And so that was a big thing, getting everybody sort of organized and saying, yeah, I get it. And I want to do it. And I have the capacity to do it. That was very challenging. So that did have a big impact on the culture.
What were, more importantly, and I guess, on a better note, what were some of the tangible benefits that ThreeWill got out of implementing EOS?
Probably the number one was just what it did for our business and the amount of focus that it provided us. We are zeroed in on what we want to accomplish and what we're trying to do and the value that we're delivering to our clients. How we go about that, how we sell, how we deliver, how we follow through, how we measure. We are all laser focused, and everybody is, sort of swimming in the same direction on that. And that without a doubt came from EOS.
All right. Fantastic. Well, I'd like to move on and just, now that you've got EOS in place, it sounds like you've really got everyone swimming in the same direction. As you said, we're at the beginning of 2024, and quite frankly, the Azure community and IT in general in 2023, it was a rough year for a lot of organizations out there. I'm curious to know, beginning of 2024, what do you see as your biggest problem as a leader, or what are the biggest problems that ThreeWill is facing today in 2024?
Yeah, I think there's two things. There's one internal that we're really working on. It's our big focus for 24, and that's identifying and signing new clients. That's our number one goal. We want to share what we do with many more organizations that we have in the past. So that's a focus of 24. I think the thing that it's not a second thing, but the external thing that's I think over everyone's head right now is it's an election year, and election years are, they're impossible to understand. They are there. It's a uh, I've been around in business. I've enough my own businesses and with ThreeWill that every 4 years you can expect the unexpected.
Sure. Yes. Especially this year.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah. Going back to the client acquisition portion of this here, I'm curious, as a Microsoft partner, do you get any type of assistance in marketing with Microsoft, or what? You're a Microsoft partner, but really at the end of the day, what does that mean? Is there a go-to-market strategy that you work on with Microsoft, or are you really more focused on marketing your solutions, just ThreeWill on their own? How do you handle that client acquisition problem?
Right now, we haven't figured out how to partner with Microsoft proper, and we've struggled with that, and we're really we would like to do more with Microsoft. We feel like we are contributing well in that SMB SME market for them, and we feel like we'd love to have some support. We just haven't figured out how to do that yet. So our client acquisition is through alliances and through marketing efforts, referrals.
Right. What type of marketing do you all typically do? I know that you all do a lot of in-person events. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, in 2023, we did, we tried to pull in folks that were concerned about employee experience from around Atlanta, and we would hold a monthly networking meeting to try and get like-minded folks together and networking. We're still evaluating whether we'll do that in 2024. We kind of put that on pause. It was very great. It was a great experience. We're trying to figure out how to make that the most out of that in 24. And I think the other, we do a lot of blogging. Is very important for us as well. And we put pretty much, I think in 23, we published a blog every week or more. Our delivery specialists are top notch, and they contribute tons to our blogging and really, trying to share information around our service offerings, as well as just how to solve problems that commonly come up and educate folks out there.
So are you finding that content-driven marketing, is that still successful with blogs? I know everyone, lots of people are going to video and whatnot, but quite frankly, do the blogs still work? And does it, to be blunt, is it still bringing in money?
We believe it is. It's, but marketing is a little bit of voodoo,
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
We think it is. We get feedback from new clients and prospects that they're drawn to us because of the content we publish. Are there other channels out there that could be better? Probably.
For like anything. Yeah.
I mean, we did a good amount of LinkedIn advertising in 2023 and found that to be not effective for what we were, who we were trying to attract. Just didn't work for us. I think it might work for other folks, but that channel didn't work for us. But we think the blogging and the content, publishing content has helped.
Well, Rob, this has been fantastic. I want to finish up with one of your other side projects. You were holding out on me, the Naughty Rigatonis.
Yeah, that's right.
Tell me more about Naughty Rigatoni. Did you bring any for me on the show here? You're supposed to bring the guest a gift. So
yeah, it's next time for sure.
Okay, next time.
So Naughty Rigatonis is my improv group. I'm a member of the Naughty Rigatonis. When I moved to North Decatur a couple of years ago, my daughter got shipped off to college, was an empty nester, and I thought I would be terrified to stand on a stage in front of a bunch of people. So let me go do that.
Wow.
So I took improv classes and for a couple of years, and got it's a wonderful community of people. Got hooked up with a group of folks that we're all kind of like-minded, and we wanted to do more shows and things of that nature. So yeah, we formed the 90 Rigatonis. I think we've been together going on 2 years now, and we usually have a show every couple of months, and just we have a great time. It's really, really fun.
Do you play at like My Dad's Garage, or what venues do you normally play in?
Yeah, we do it at Dad's Garage when we can. They have an ensemble cast there, and it's fabulous if you ever get a chance to see a show there. And that's actually where I did my training.
Oh,
Was at
wow.
Dad's
Okay.
Garage, yeah. And they have fantastic training courses you can attend. But we do a lot of independent theaters in Atlanta. There's a Dynamic El Dorado. It's not far from Dad's. The folks over there are fantastic. We actually just did a Christmas show in December there. It's a great little theater, and he treats independent companies really well. So.
Wow. Well, that sounds like quite an experience, from EOS to improv comedy.
That's right.
You're a Renaissance man, Rob.
It's never a dull moment, right?
There you go. I can only imagine what happens in the EOS meetings now that you've been through improv comedy training. So
Right.
I'm sure they weren't expecting this. So your L10s.
Yes, that's right. They didn't sign up for it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, awesome. Well, Rob, thank you so much for being on the show. If everyone wants to learn more about ThreeWill, where can they find out about ThreeWill?
Sure. Best place is to go to our website at threewill.com. You can also check out LinkedIn. We're at ThreeWill on LinkedIn, and we also publish a lot of content on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. And then for those that are into improv comedy, more importantly, where can they learn more about the Naughty Rigatonis?
Instagram, or as people younger than us say, Insta. It's the Naughty Rigatonis.
Okay, the Naughty Rigatonis. Okay,
we'll post
awesome.
our shows out there and everything.
Okay, we'll put them in the show notes. Well, everyone, thank you so much, Rob Horton. It's been an absolute pleasure. Again, ThreeWill, top-notch Microsoft partner here in the collaboration and communication space for employee engagement. You work outside of Atlanta as well, correct? You have clients all over the nation. Is that a correct statement?
We do. We actually have some clients overseas as well.
Okay, international. So again, just a wonderful organization to work with. So, Rob, again, thank you so much for being on the show. And again, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Take care.